Donkey Kong's newest rogue gallery, Voidco, was a heavily suggested Monkey Monday topic in some of my past Monkey Monday videos, and honestly the biggest struggle was figuring out which one of this trio to start with. The thought process boiled down to start with the hardest one or start with the easiest one, and honestly I figured starting with the hardest would just make for a better challenge and a better video. While I am under the full belief system that the other two are easy to narrow down to modern primates, Grumpy Kong, I think, is a little bit more prehistoric. However, before we go back in time, we have to talk about the present day. And this present day just happens to be Monkey Monday. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for the support so far on this channel. Jorky TV is now almost at the big 500 subscribers. A fun reminder, I do have a fun giveaway planned for once we hit the big 1,000 that I can't wait to share with you guys more about. Until then, we are going back to the past and we are discussing Grumpy Kong. I do want to give the slightest warning that there may be slight spoilers in here for Bonanza. Nothing too crazy at all, just the slightest tad bit of spoilers, so there's your friendly heads up. So, as said, looking at the other Voidco candidates, it isn't too hard for me to narrow down to their real-world counterpart. I don't want to spoil these completely because these are going to be videos down the line, and your boy Jorky needs to save up that content.
Move this man!
But you won't have to wait too terribly long on those. I have Poppy Kong and I got Void Kong coming in the next few weeks. However, back to Grumpy Kong, unlike those two, I don't think he has a modern real-world counterpart. We're gonna start with his physical appearance. Grumpy Kong is a big boy.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
He towers over our main man Donkey Kong, who isn't too much of a slouch himself, and he is the big man of the Voidco group, and it's honestly not even close in comparison. Now, depending on the picture you want to use as a reference here, his fur color ranges from like a really bright red to orange color, gray skin, and a rougher complexion. The skin's a little bit cracked. Underneath his eyes, he has some purple bags. Now, I recognize that mandrills also have something similar to this under their eyes, but that's the only similarity these guys share, and I don't think it'd be fair for me to say, well, he's clearly a mandrill off one little comparison.
And I'd hate to remind you, but
mandrills have tails. Our big back friend Grumpy Kong does not. That isn't to say the people behind DK Bonanza weren't using the mandrill as an inspiration for some of these design choices. I just don't believe that's the closest relative species. In my opinion, and what's been discussed by people who beat me to the punch, Grumpy Kong is very similar to that of an orangutan. Now, implying he's an orangutan, we could use Monkey Kong and Lanky Kong as references to that, and honestly, I don't think he physically fits in here outside of the fur color. I think his orangutan similarities come down to the characteristics of Grumpy Kong more than anything else. Speaking of the characteristics, let's get into that. In terms of characteristics, I agree that Grumpy Kong is indeed close to an orangutan. He's very intelligent, quite possibly the most intelligent of the group. He is also seen to be the most crafty of the group as well, given that he creates a lot of the enemies we end up going against. This relates pretty hard to orangutans. To source orangutan.com, it is nicely summarized that orangutans have sufficient evidence to collect just how intelligent they really are. Ranging from tool making, using those tools for problem solving, they have great insight and memory of space and time, and they're great at classifying different objects. When it comes to their social intelligence, they've been shown to be capable of a multitude of things such as empathy, intentions, imitation, teaching, culture, and language. They've also been able to form and work pretty well in alliances, that specifically sounding very similar to Grumpy Kong. Not enough to convince you? When it comes to how sufficient they are with tools, orangutans have a ton of evidence to pull from their DIY woodworking skills to using sticks and other tools to gain their food. Just look at this one specific orangutan pull off this amazing crafting trick. You may be thinking he missed each shot, but I just don't think you're at the intellectual level to understand what he's doing in that video. All jokes aside, Grumpy Kong and orangutans are both insanely crafty and intelligent. A quick little side note is in a loading screen for Bonanza, you could see Grumpy Kong is even good with plants. This also helps boost the orangutan similarities when it was covered by Isabel B. Lalmer that an orangutan named Rakus in an Indonesian national park used a plant to heal a wound on his face. So, just like Rakus, Grumpy Kong is also very crafty when it comes to taking care of and using nature. So from both a physical and characteristic aspect, it would seem pretty cut and dry to go,
Alright, Jorky, the dude is an orangutan. Wrap it up.
I actually think people are making this a bit too easy. A big part of this guy is to me that he is using and making fossils. His builds resemble that of ancient structures, that of prehistoric structures. He's the only Kong in the game, as far as I can recall, doing this specific thing. Now, yeah, you can argue,
Okay, Jorky, does that mean architects and people building replicas of dinosaurs at museums make them dinosaurs? To which I reply, I don't know, maybe.
the headspace I'm in with this is that he has to have some knowledge of how to replicate and utilize these fossilized creatures. Orangutans are great with sticks and other tools. When they're put in a modern human environment like Chatnik, an orangutan who was raised in a very human environment to the point he learned sign language, he adapted pretty well. However, they aren't going to be able to pick up on something of past structures or fossilized builds like humans would. An orangutan would either need to be taught it or they'd have to adapt it from their surroundings. So with that knowledge in mind, it either means Grumpy Kong was taught how to restructure these fossilized enemies, or he was shown how to do it. With Boy Kong being a kind of selfish leader as far as we know, and Poppy Kong doing her own thing, all we can be left to assume is that Grumpy Kong picked up this trait by himself. How else would he have done that without being something of a prehistoric being as well? I'm specifically looking at the Gigantopithecus, who, for the remainder of this video for my sanity, we will be referring to as the Gigantoape. I'm a little bit illiterate, so I don't want to keep trying to pronounce that and mess it up down the road. That being said, the Gigantoape is a massive extinct prehistoric ape that existed from 2 million to 300 to 200,000 years ago. Quite a gap, but research is fun like that. The Gigantoape is reflected to be similar to that of an orangutan due to some of the fossils being misidentified orangutan remains. These dudes were massive. According to Britannica, they could get up to 9 feet tall and weigh from 400 to 600 pounds. That is absolutely insane. Let's go to a scale to measure up all these world apes, the Gigantoape, Grumpy Kong, and Donkey Kong, and see where we can land. In my past video, we can confirm that Donkey Kong is a Western lowland gorilla. A Western lowland gorilla sizes up to about 5 to 6 feet tall when standing up. Now, let's go with the concept that Grumpy Kong is an orangutan. Orangutans can get up to about 4 to 5 feet tall. That size just doesn't unfortunately add up when you scale Donkey and Grumpy Kong next to each other in the game. I also want to add in, even if we add in Lanky Kong, who everyone is under the assumption is an orangutan, he also doesn't scale up well next to Grumpy Kong, once again confirming to me that he is not just an orangutan. Now, let's consider the Gigantoape. Even if we just cap the Gigantoape at 9 feet tall, the size difference doesn't exactly measure to Donkey Kong and Grumpy by far, but it does make the scale make a slight bit more sense when you look at the two. So when it comes to size and weight, the Gigantoape really does work more in line with Grumpy Kong. When it comes to characteristics, studies on the Gigantoape typically run back to being similar to orangutans due to similar physical structure and teeth structure. So assuming they could also share the same skill sets to the orangutan as we discussed earlier, that would also relate the Gigantoape to Grumpy Kong as well. In summary, Grumpy Kong is a gigantic ape that is good with crafting and structure. He has a knowledge of fossilized builds, prehistoric builds, and utilizes those throughout the game. Physically, he is massive, taller than any regular orangutan we've seen in this series, and also a lot bigger in terms of width too. He's thick. All of these little things added in, I think this Kong is specifically based off the prehistoric, the Gigantothopicus. But those are just my thoughts. I personally think that this is an awesome way of looking at it, specifically because I think the concept of Grumpy Kong being a prehistoric Kong is awesome to think about. I think that just adds so many more layers to a character that I hope we see in future DK games. But what about your thoughts? Some of you have given me awesome scientific feedback on previous Monkey Monday videos. What do you think about Grumpy Kong being this prehistoric ape? And once again, thank you all for checking out Jorky TV. If you liked the video, please feel free to do the thing every YouTuber asks you to do by leaving a like, subscribing, and leaving a comment about what you would like to see on the next Monkey Monday. And until next time, you all have a great day, and thank you for tuning in.